We are back at the Mobility Project. I've just gotten out of the car. We've just driven 3 hours, spent the whole day kayaking with friends and coaches. And I feel stiff, I feel wretched. And why am I so stiff? And part of that is that no matter what I did today, I was behind on my water. I was paddling a kayak. Every chance I got, I was thinking about drinking. I had to sit. All that kind of work stuff made me feel adhesed and like my sliding surfaces. I literally got out and my ankles are stiff. Remember that remember this little hydration test, that we're interested in kind of combating global dehydration. And if you kind of ferret out the outlines of your shin bone there, if I take the middle of my thumb and drive it right in the middle of that flat part of that tibia, if I press hard for a few seconds, I should be able to release. And you'll notice that I got a dent in my shin there. And I usually don't have a dent there, but that's just saying how dehydrated I am, how junky my interstitial tissues are. No wonder I feel so stiff. Nothing's sliding. My nerve beds aren't traveling very well. The tendons aren't running well in their sheaths. And just drinking a bunch of water isn't going to get that done. At some point you may have to add a little electrolyte, a little isotonic solution. This is some Ultima. Doesn't have any calories. This is a salt stick cap. You might be able to pour half of this in, but just getting a little bit of some of the essential electrolytes of, not just the sodium, but the calcium, magnesium, all of that stuff will make a difference. Camelback makes these. This is Elixir. But something like this is definitely going to jumpstart. Otherwise, you're going to get this big fluid bolus that your kidneys are going to kick out, and you won't be able to absorb that. So be thinking about salts a little bit sometimes when you're running behind and you got to pour back in. Because I've got to turn it around for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big day, and I feel stiff. I don't want to feel stiff. So today I'm going to combat stiffness in my upper body. I just paddle for like 8 hours like a madman, and tomorrow is a big heavy front day, or a heavy upper body day. So this is for the Royal Canadian College, War College. Some friends there who were asking about, hey, what are good ways to kind of hammer the front of the pec, the pec minor? Remember that pec attaches from the sternum and runs up, and part of the pec attaches to the arm, and the pec minor actually attaches to the scapula and pulls the scap forward. So if that thing gets critically tight, remember it can be obviously thoracic stiffness in the back, but one of the things that you can do is remember that just mashing that thing with some soft tissue. So if I get this leaning into a wall, I can stick my head through the doorway of this wall and I can get deep into that movement, and I can start to swing my arm through and around and really get some pulling. This is basically a poor person's active release technique. I call it active tack and stretch. We're driving through the pec minor, and I can even unglue some of the kind of the subclavius, all of that stuff that gets tight and short in there, and really pinpoint, and I'll hold it in my hand and I can swing or just move that arm through any painful ranges. It's a very effective way to unglue this kind of anterior quadrant. So check that. This is one of Adrian Bosman's favorite, and he calls this the airplane crash victim. So I want you guys to explore this today. I'm going to put the arm out to the side. I tuck the shoulder back because I never want to really trash and mobilize in a bad position. The shoulder goes back. I'm going to just roll over and slowly start to kind of hammer. And so if you imagine if we fell out of an airplane and you came upon me, I'd look like a crash test victim of an airplane, right? So, but what happens is by having the shoulder back and this really acute leverage, I get some really kind of acute bits of the pec as it attaches the front of the shoulder there. So if this feels weird or your shoulder's in a bad dislocated D-bag position, don't do it. Put your shoulder back, slowly load that thing, look away, hang out, and remember, just try to contract and relax in there for a couple minutes. So that's homework number one. Homework number two is a little bit of a variation of kind of this tricep. Instead of winding up with a band tonight and hitting this long-headed tricep and kind of work on this position, we've shown this before on the blog, but basically I'm going to walk into a doorway, and I'll like to give you variations on these things because sometimes you don't have all your tools. I walk in, I'm going to load up into this corner. So that's the first thing that's happened is I just kind of catch the lat, I'm in this kind of lateral flexion, kind of abduction piece, and then the tensioner is pressing through the tricep here. And so that's the first to load through here, and then by being able to press through the tricep, it's a little bit different than loading the tricep and kind of hitting that position. So press, 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 and then hang out here, and I can contract, relax right into the door, trying to think about starting with the armpit off, press, wind up all that tissue, and then press here. If you start here and then over press, you're not going to get any of your business, okay? So that's homework number two. First was crash test, airplane crash test. 2, wind up here. And then this is another variation of working on internal rotation. Instead of doing that internal rotation on the floor, I can throw my shoulders up, get nice and tight, hands behind back, and then I can just lean into the door and start to work on that thing, trying to keep shoulders back. So we get that nice contact cue, wind up, and then I can press back into the door and work on some of that internal rotation, one arm at a time. And then the further you can get more hands between the door and the back of your shoulder, the worse it is. So keep that fight, kind of keep those things back, and then press that thing in. Keep working. As soon as you feel like a good breath, contract, relax into your back. And remember, if you feel vulnerable in any of these positions, go ahead and do a little contraction. All right? So that's homework number 3. All right? And hopefully we'll get your hydration back on, get yourself unglued, because tomorrow's a big day. See you then.